Hi everyone, my name is Mike Hannigan, and today I want to be talking to you a little bit about gleaning. So, in my previous video, I mentioned that gleaning is the act of volunteers harvesting produce from farmers' fields after the main harvest has taken place. Today, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into what gleaning is and why gleaning is important. So, how I was introduced to gleaning was at GCC. We were looking to put on a free farmers market like the ones that Stone Soup does in downtown Greenfield. And unfortunately, on Greenfield Community College campus, we don't grow enough food to have the market be exclusively with produce grown on campus. So we were looking for ways to try to get donations of produce to host these free farmers markets. And gleaning was the opportunity that really made it possible. And it was through a connection with this organization called Rachel's Table that brought us access to produce to be able to put these markets on. So I'm going to play a short video from some of the people that I've worked with at Rachel's Table about how the gleaning program works.
Gleaning is an ancient cultural practice of harvesting food that's left over in fields by and for people who are vulnerable and food insecure.
And what does, who does the gleaning?
So when we glean, we are coming from a cultural tradition that is near and dear to us as a Jewish organization. And at the same time, we recognize that people from many different cultures throughout history and presently have different ways of gleaning food and caring for the people in their communities who need that food. So when we glean, we are working with people in our community who themselves are impacted by food insecurity, as well as people who just want to volunteer and work with us.
Yeah, and gleaning exists worldwide in a number of different forms. And in the US, there are over 200 gleaning organizations who are all connected through networks and professional conferences and share information that can be locally relevant to their programs. So we're part of a large community.
And is there a specific time that gleaning takes place and how's that organized?
Sure, gleaning happens from July through November. That is our main gleaning season because that's the growing season where we live. Do you want to speak to more of how it works?
How our program works is we have a number of farmer partners. This last year in 2023, we worked with 13 farmer partners. And when they're done harvesting a specific crop, say carrots, they'll send us a message to either Kara or I, and they'll say, we're done with carrots. Would you like to come harvest what we weren't able to pick or what we have left? And then we'll send out an email to our network of gleaning volunteers and we'll say who's available to harvest carrots on Tuesday at 2 p.m. And people will sign up and we'll send out information. And then one of our staff members, usually Kara or myself, will show up with about an average, I would say, of 12 volunteers. We'll all spend 2 hours picking carrots, having a really nice time, chatting, getting to be farmers for a little bit. And then we'll weigh all the carrots and we'll distribute them. And we'll be in contact with one of our many partner agencies or several of our partner agencies. And our gleaners, or sometimes the Rachel's Table delivery van, will deliver the carrots all over the Pioneer Valley.
So that was Kara and Sarah from Rachel's Table talking about how the gleaning program works through Rachel's Table. And now I'm going to get into a little bit about how, why gleaning is so important. So in Massachusetts, 1 in 3 adults are struggling with food insecurity, and that was from data from the year 2022. And what that means is many families in Massachusetts struggle to obtain enough food for themselves and their families to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle. So when we look at the numbers and we break them down through marginalized communities, the numbers are even more shocking. Mass General Brigham Hospital and the Greater Boston Food Bank found that 50% of Black adults are struggling with food insecurity, 45% of LGBTQ plus individuals, and 61% of Hispanic adults in Massachusetts in the year 2022 were experiencing food insecurity. And at the same time that so many people are struggling to afford healthy food, we're also wasting a staggering amount of food. So, if 16% of that waste occurs at the farm level, and when we look at the total waste, there is approximately 108 billion pounds of food wasted annually in the United States. And that is the equivalent to 300,000 Statue of Liberties in weight every year of food that's being wasted. So, and gleaning is a great way to combat this problem because 1 in 3 specialty crops in the US are not harvested. So there's a lot of vegetables that are just being left in the field. And at the same time we're experiencing all those problems, there's no relief in sight because the demand for food is expected to increase from 35 to 56% before the year 2050. So we're going to need to find a way to reduce waste if we have any chance of meeting the demand that's coming in the future. So this summer, I had the opportunity to research gleaning incentives that are proposed in a tax bill in the Massachusetts State House. And many states already have tax incentives to promote gleaning in their states. And while there is a federal tax deduction that is available to farmers, a lot of times that deduction is not utilized. And certain states have implemented state-specific tax incentives, but Massachusetts is not one of those states. So I set out to survey farmers this summer at the Massachusetts Fruit Growers Association. I focused on apple growers because my internship was through the fruit extension. And what my results show is that if Massachusetts were to implement the tax incentives proposed in Senate Bill 920, who was brought by Senator Comerford, who is actually our local senator, then farmers would be more likely to participate in gleaning. So, one of the big takeaways from my research was that farmers' time is valuable and they have a lot of things that they're juggling during the harvest season. And incentivizing them through tax incentives is an effective way to compensate them for their time and get more farmers to participate in gleaning. And what we found is that tax incentives were the most motivating factor. There's also language in the bill that would add more liability protections. And we found that the significant barrier from farmers participating was lack of time. So hopefully this bill is going to go forward and be passed into law in Massachusetts so that we'll have less food waste and support our food system. And one of the ways that we've seen apple growers participate more in gleaning already was this year, Rachel's Table was able to glean more apples than the total amount of produce they gleaned the year before. So this year, just in apples, they surpassed the total produce that they had gleaned the previous year. And hopefully, my research played some small part in getting the word out at the Fruit Growers Association. But likely, this was just because it was an extremely good year for apples. And anytime their weather aligns and we have a surplus in crops, there's a chance that there's going to be waste. And we want to make sure that as much of that food gets to the people who need it. And so gleaning is just an excellent tool to try to reduce food waste and support farmers. So thank you so much for listening to me today about uh, gleaning and why it's an effective tool to fight food waste.